Hi guys, welcome back to the Tech Chat. Now the Galaxy S6 is infamous for having a pretty terrible battery life. You'd be lucky if you got through a full day with the S6, but with the launch of the new Galaxy S7 and the S7 Edge, have things improved, or should we be looking elsewhere for phones like the LG G5, which supports removable batteries? So I have the S6, the S7, and of course also the S7 Edge, all running the latest Android 6.0.1 software, so they're all on the same level playing field, at least in terms of software. But of course the biggest difference between them is the size of their batteries, with the S6 featuring a relatively small 2550 mAh battery compared to 3000 and 3600 on the S7 and S7 Edge respectively. So the big questions I want to answer are, if you already own a Galaxy S6, is it worth upgrading to a Galaxy S7 just on battery life alone? And also, what's the difference between the S7 and the S7 Edge? If you're on the fence between which one you want to buy, is the S7 Edge that much better in terms of battery that you should go for it and spend that extra bit of money over the S7? So let's get started with a traditional Geekbench 3 battery rundown test. With all the phones fully charged, I left them overnight to see which one would last the longest. The results are pretty incredible actually. Let's start with the Galaxy S6, which took 5 hours and 50 minutes to completely run out of battery. Now compare that to the S7, which lasted 9 hours and 27 minutes. That's a 63% increase in battery life. I thought at most, considering all the phones are running Android 6 Marshmallow, the difference between the S6 and the S7 might be say 20 or 25%, but not 63. That's huge. But what about the S7 Edge? What do you think the results will be, considering the Edge has a 20% bigger battery than the one in the S7, but it does have a 0.4 inch bigger screen at 5.5 inches? Well, I can tell you the S7 Edge lasted 11 hours and 47 minutes. That's a 24% increase over the S7 and a 102% increase over the Galaxy S6. So this test has shown there's a huge difference between the S6 and the S7 and S7 Edge in terms of battery life. But it is just a benchmark, and that's all well and good, but now we need to find out how they compare in real life scenarios. So first up is a HD video test with all three phones fully charged, freshly restarted, and all recently used apps closed, and the same settings on each, including brightness set to max and power saving mode disabled. I opened the YouTube app and started playing a full HD 1080p video. I then left the phones for 1 hour and came back to see how much battery had been lost on each. After 1 hour, the S6 had lost 21% of its battery, the S7 had lost just 16%, and the Edge had lost 15%. Not a big difference between the S7 and the S7 Edge, but both performed much better than the Galaxy S6. Interestingly though, if we open the battery settings on each phone, we can see quite a difference in estimated usage time remaining for the three devices. Despite the video test only dropping the S7's battery by 1% more than the Edge, according to the phone's battery estimates, the Edge could last a further 12 hours and 45 minutes compared to just 8 hours and 24 minutes on the S7. That's 40% longer. But I'm not going to give too much credit to these estimated usage times, as it claims the S6 can last for another 9 hours and 13 minutes, which is around 45 minutes longer than the S7, which doesn't really make any sense and is contrary to both the benchmark and how much battery we lost during the video test, so I'm not really sure how accurate these estimated times are. So like the Geekbench results, the 1 hour HD video test suggests both the S7 and S7 Edge have significantly better battery lives than the S6. Now moving on to my final test, a 2-hour gaming rundown playing Modern Combat 5. Once again, all phones were fully recharged with maximum brightness and no apps running in the background. I started the game on all three phones simultaneously and left it idle for 2 hours. Even though the character isn't moving, you can still see the game is fully rendering all the graphical effects, even though I'm not actually doing anything in the game. So 2 hours later, what's the result? How much battery life have we lost? Well, once again, the S6 performs pretty poorly, with just 47% of the battery life remaining compared to 74% on the S7 and 76% on the S7 Edge. As you can see, the S6 has lost over twice as much battery compared with the new S7 phones, which confirms the trend from the benchmark and the video test that the S6 has a comparatively pretty terrible battery life. In day-to-day use testing these phones, I do notice the S6 losing a lot more of its charge more quickly than the S7 phones, even if it's just simple things like checking social media or browsing the web. I've also noticed the S7 Edge does last a little bit longer than the S7, by say around 10 or 15% in just the general things I do on a day-to-day basis. Now, obviously this is my usage pattern and will be different from yours, but my sort of subjective day-to-day general results and experience do match the test's results we've seen from the benchmark, the video test, and the gaming test. But before you go out and throw your S6 in the bin, it is worth mentioning that this is a year old. I bought this when it came out in 2015, and as with any smartphone, the battery life will degrade over time as it's charged and run down over and over. So you can expect a brand new S6 to perform a bit better than this one in the tests we've done today. However, pretty much everyone who owns an S6 will tell you, regardless of its age, the battery life is pretty average and you'll struggle to get through a full day with it. I know I do. So back to those questions I asked at the beginning. Is it worth upgrading from the S6 to the S7 or the S7 Edge on battery life alone? Well, I'm sure you'll agree, given the results we've seen, that that's a resounding yes. You should definitely upgrade on battery. It's anything between 50 and 100% better in terms of battery performance. It's incredible. So yeah, if battery life is important to you, you own an S6 and you're not sure about whether you should go for an S7 or an S7 Edge, definitely do go for one of the new phones. It's a huge difference night and day. And finally, how much better is the S7 Edge over the S7? Well, it's a little bit trickier, and the benchmark shows there's a 24% increase in battery life with the S7, but in real life, in the test we did with the video and the gaming, we only saw sort of like a 1 and 2% difference over the 1 and 2 hour period we were testing it. But if we extrapolate those differences between the S7 and the S7 Edge over, say, 10 hours, then the Edge would have around 10% more battery than the S7, which sounds about right to me given my experience of using these both on a day-to-day basis. So the Edge does have a better battery life, but it's not a huge difference. You might get an extra hour or two out of it. But if battery life is really important to you and you do want the best, you should definitely go for the S7 Edge. But even the S7 is a huge improvement over the S6 and be more than good enough for most people. So I hope you found this battery test between the S6, the S7 and the S7 Edge useful. Let me know what you think of the results in the comments below. And if you're interested in buying one of the two new Galaxy devices, you can find links to buy them in the description below. Please do like and subscribe if you enjoy my videos. It makes it all worthwhile. Thank you very much for watching, guys, and I'll see you again right here on the Tech Chat.